If you've got a team and you're still working 60 plus hours a week, it's usually because there are three core beliefs that you're holding on to that you think are true that actually aren't. The reason that founders with companies of even $2 million to $5 million get stuck doing a lot of the stuff isn't because of their skill level and how much they can do. It's their skill level in what they can let go of. But how do you know what to let go of to make sure that the entire system doesn't break? In this video, we're going to go through those three core beliefs that I've found are shared by people are in this revenue range that keep them as the bottleneck in their business. By the way, I'm Brent, and I run a commercial real estate services company that does just under $2 million a year, 34% profit. It takes me about 90 minutes a week to run. The rest of the time, I help other founders go through the same thing that I did and cut 10 to 12 hours off of their work week every single week within 24 weeks. Man, I say weeks a lot. With that, let's get into the very first belief that people have when they're simply the bottleneck of their business. And this is something that I think a lot of people get stuck right here in this belief that nobody can do it better than me. And that's true in some senses, but it's not true in the sense that actually matters. Nobody could be you better than you, meaning that you've got talents in a lot of different functions that the business does. You might have had talent in sales. You obviously do, otherwise the business wouldn't exist because nobody's got a job until somebody sells something. You may have talents in fulfillment. You may have talents in building things. Like whatever your talents are, all of that together, you are better at being you than anybody else, and therefore nobody could do it as good as you. But you've got to think about it like breaking what you do into parts. So a specialist is much more valuable than a generalist. That's the reason why we go to somebody that is specializing in knee surgeries if we need a knee replacement. We're not going to go to a general practitioner for that sort of thing. The surgeon is going to be way better at that one function than the thing that the other guy is pretty good at doing in a lot of different places. So we got to remember that while you are great at what you do, or you're most likely great at what you do, and that nobody could do all the things you do as well as you, it is not a hard stretch to believe that if you've got specialists doing work, if you've got a specialist in customer success, they're going to be way better at customer success than you are because that's all they're focused on. They're not focused on the 50 other things that you have to do to keep all the plates spinning as you're going through your days and your weeks and your quarters. So that is the core belief number one that really isn't true. Nobody can do it better than you. Not all the way, but there are things that you do, functions that you do that other people could do way better than you. By the way, if you want 3 hours back this week, if you're a founder of a company that does at least $1.5 million to $5 million in revenue, and you got at least a 15% EBITDA, and your calendar is just packed and you're not sure how to get out of it, you can get 3 hours back this week using a 48-hour founder time reset, and you can do that for free. I'll drop a link in the description to this video and you can check that out. But let's talk about the second belief that you probably think is true if you're stuck in this place where you're the bottleneck of the business. That really isn't true. And that's all your clients, or at least the key clients, are going to leave if you're not the one providing the service directly. I remember that was like a big belief that I had because I built all the relationships at the very start. And so I thought, man, if they don't have me anymore, then they're not going to stick around because I'm the only reason that they're staying. Now, looking back on that, I realized that that was really egotistical of me to think that. But why it's not true, or at least why I've found that it's not true, is that the clients aren't there for you. They're there for the thing that you do, whether that's a service that you provide or whether that's a product that you make and that they buy. So you've got this initial relationship, and this is the one that you probably built up because you were the one that started it. And if you're having trouble like letting go of some of these things, you're still holding on partially because that initial relationship that you built up. That's the thing that starts trust. But what really makes for sticky client relationships or sticky customer relationships, if you've got a product, is the fulfillment of that and their satisfaction with the service that you're providing or with the product that you're delivering to them. It's not about the relationship. That doesn't make it sticky. That just gives you a couple of free passes if you screw something up. Better not to screw something up in the first place. And what I found is that the longer you choose to stay in, being all things to all people, and doing a lot of the things that a founder in the position that you're likely in, the system's going to break and client satisfaction is going to go down simply because the volume of things you have to deal with as you start to get a little bit bigger past like the infancy stage and more towards like adolescence, it's simply impossible to sustain. And it doesn't matter how great you are or how much energy you have or how much drive or discipline. It's simply too much for one individual to do. And so the system's going to break. The third thing that you likely believe that is making you the bottleneck in your business is that you feel like you have to lead by example, right? Like you have to outwork everyone else in order to get their respect and be the leader of the organization. I thought the same exact thing, right? Because I bought into hustle culture super hard. And I was the first one there, and I'd most often be the last one to leave. And like I'd make a point of starting something new in the afternoon if people were still around in the office to make sure that I was the last one there. Not because it like had urgency to it, but it was more for showing people like, hey, I am working hard. The deal with it is that your work ethic is not what your team respects. That's not what gets you the respect as the leader of the organization. It's not. What is the way you treat them in the work that they do and how well you hold them to known standards of behavior. Known standards of behavior is basically like, this is the way that we operate here. This is what's expected of you. And as long as that is like super clearly laid out and they're held to that standard, they end up giving you respect. You can look at that very similarly to the way that you'd look at like raising kids if you've got kids, is that they respect you based on the rules that you provide and lay out very clearly, and you holding them to those rules. If you don't hold them to those rules, then they're not going to respect you and they're just going to walk all over you. Same thing comes with employees. If you've got a set of known standards and you're not holding people to those standards, you're not going to get respect. It doesn't matter how hard you're working or if you outwork everybody else. They're just going to sit back and go like, all right, well, he's doing all the work. I'm going to let him go. So you've got to establish very clear standards and you've got to hold people to those standards and you've got to treat them well while they're doing it. Outworking people has nothing to do with how hard they're going to work or your ability to lead those people. The leader is the one not doing all the work. Think about that like from the military standpoint. A general isn't on the front lines because that's not the general's role. The general's role is to deliver a strategy and pass it down through the chain of command so it finally gets executed by the troops on the front line. It's not outworking. It's out strategizing. That's your role. So you've got to stay in your lane. And it's tough to do, especially as you start to move past that infancy stage towards adolescence as a company, because you're changing how you need to operate as the founder. It's different and different skill sets than you had when you were first building up the company, right? You had to get good at sales. You had to get good at marketing. You had to get good at fulfillment. You had to get good at customer service. You had to get good at all of those things. But as you grow and start to move into that next phase, you've got a whole different skill set that you've got to be able to develop about leadership and management and longer term strategy. And that doesn't allow you to do the client facing work anymore. And that's why you're the bottleneck unless you can learn to let those three beliefs go. And so hopefully in this video, I've shifted some of your perceptions about what you think might be true that's actually keeping you as the bottleneck in your company, and how you can actually let go of that. And just so you know, everything that I just shared with you, those are all beliefs that I had, right? Because I work 90 minutes a week on that company now, but it wasn't always that way. I was working 60 plus hours a week because of these beliefs. And by letting them go and seeing what the truth actually was and just codifying a little bit differently, that allowed me to start pulling back. Obviously, there's other stuff that went on to get me to the level that I'm at now with the 90 minutes a week. But the first thing to do is just clear a little bit of space on your calendar so you can start to work on some of these things that you need to do to extract yourself from working in the business all the time so you can actually work on it and then eventually just kind of hang out while it's doing its thing and just continue to paying you. So if you're nodding your head and going like, yes, that is totally true, and I want to fix that, there's a link in the description of this video for a 48-hour founder time reset. That's a free thing that I offer on the front end. The long-term play is that I want to help you save 10 to 12 hours per week and make that your new standard, not just a flash in the pan. We save a little bit of time here, but like your new standard by putting in a founder time operating system. And that needs to happen by you getting 3 hours back first. I can't help you with the whole thing unless you've got a little bit of time to be able to dedicate towards it. That's why I provide this free resource. Plus, it works out for you because it's a test drive to see how I operate and to see how you operate inside of the system I built. If you want to grab that for free, go ahead and click the link in the description. Thanks for watching this video. I'll see you on the next one.